I want you to define what toxic masculinity constitutes. Since we're going to define things so carefully, let's do it.
Let's say, that you kind of...
Welcome back to Masculine Academy channel. We are helping men to become their best version. In this video, we'll watch Jordan Peterson destroying completely a feminist about the idea of toxic masculinity. Watch it.
Jordan, my question is, what is the antidote towards toxic masculinity?
Well, the antidote is responsible masculinity. And what does responsible mean? It means, well, if you're responsible, then you're trying to do what's honest first. So you're careful with your speech and your actions. You're careful with your speech in that you don't say things that you know to be false, and you're careful in your actions so that you don't have to lie about what you do. That's a good start. And then the next thing would be that you're capable of taking responsibility for yourself at least, so that once you're an adult, no one else has to bend over backwards to ensure that you don't unduly suffer in the world. And so that's responsibility for yourself. And then if you get halfway good at that, well then, you might think about taking on the responsibility of a family and contributing to your community and doing all those things in a harmonious manner. And that's obviously the antidote to toxic masculinity, which is not a phrase I would generally use. I just think about it as, what would you call it? I think sinful behavior is a much more accurate representation personally, but it's honesty and responsibility. And I do think about it as a function of harmony. I got that a lot from reading Jean Piaget, whose work was a psychological extension of Kant's categorical imperative. Because Kant believed that you should act in a manner such that if the way you acted became a universal, that would be beneficial. But Piaget formalized that very nicely, showing that one of the bases for the emergence of a system of genuine ethics was an iterable form of reciprocity. So that, so for example, I can give you a quick example of that. My granddaughter, who's now 15 months old, has discovered a new game, and it's a Piagetian game, a developmental game, and she discovered this by watching, but also on her own, and partly because it's a very deep part of human nature. So she has this little wooden spoon, and her game is you sit with her at the table, and her game is she gives you the spoon, and then you take it, and then you give it back, and then she's all happy about that, and then she gives the spoon to the person who's sitting beside her, and then they give it back to her, and she's very happy about that. And so it's an amazing game because she's learned to give up something, to let go of something that she wants, and to trust someone else to return it to her, and that's what she's playing with. And then you can play with that game. It's quite fun. So, and you have to pay careful attention to her and watch how she's manifesting her emotions. And so maybe what you do is you take the spoon and you hide it under your hand. That sort of disconcerts her a bit. Then you show it to her and pick it up and give it to her, and she's happy about that because what she sees is that the principle of reciprocity can maintain itself across a set of transformations, and that's really exciting to her. Or you can give her the spoon and she can give it back to you, and then she can reach for it and you can pull it away 1/4 inch, and that sort of disconcerts her, and then she'll You want to repeat that?
I'm sorry. I said that didn't cover really a toxic masculinity, right? Because
yes, it's dealing with the principle of reciprocity.
You just said that you have to be honest and responsible as a man, right?
Well, put it this way. When I'm giving the spoon back to my granddaughter, I'm not engaging in toxic masculinity. And that was the point that I was trying to make, is that, and this deep reciprocity and trust is part of the social contract. And it is precisely the antidote to what precisely, since we're going to pursue this, what precisely is toxic masculinity, as opposed to, say, toxic femininity or toxic humanity? What exactly are you asking me about?
I really want to know what you like, how you would describe toxic masculinity. Because
no, I want you to define what toxic masculinity constitutes. Since we're going to define things so carefully, let's do it.
Well, I think...
Okay, guys, sorry, but we really have to move on. So there will be more questions later on. There will be a lot of opportunities.
No,
to
but
ask
maybe
questions.
let's if you. Okay, so let's define it shortly.
Her question was probably well-founded at the beginning, and Jordan Peterson likes to give complete answers. But in a few words, what he said is only 4 recommendations for men, but even for women. Be honest, be careful with your speech and your actions. Secondly, don't lie. There's no point because you are creating a fake reality. Third, take responsibility for yourself so you're not a burden for the rest of the world. And ideally, take responsibility for your family. What I like about Jordan Peterson is very good at listening and assessing who he's dealing with. It is very clear that he's dealing with a woman who didn't pay attention to his response. By the way she looked, she didn't pay attention to what he was saying. She tried to escape by asking the meaning of her own questions. It is like me saying, what is on the TV tonight? And then asking you, can you help me define what a TV is? Complete nonsense. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe for more similar content. Now we are about to see one of the most golden moments of Jordan Peterson.
I think that the moment when you kind of, I have a hard time to kind of describe it in English. Let's say, that you kind of go over a boundary that kind of neglects the freedom of the opposite, well, gender or whatsoever. So that's toxic masculinity, and that you kind of have.
But that would also be toxic femininity.
Well, may I like finish my sentence,
Sure.
please? Thank you. And then also, I lost my sentence now. But no, I will be back. I'm back. But more in the sense that. Yeah, can someone help me here in the audience?
Okay, so before we move on, let me point something out. You know, that I was willing to undertake this line of discussion, allowing for the possibility that the category of toxic masculinity had some content, right? But if we're going to pursue that line of reasoning and quibble about the answer, then we're certainly going to quibble about the definition that's embedded in the question. And so part of what's happened in our discourse is that we're required ethically to assume a priori, merely out of politeness, that the utterance toxic masculinity actually constitutes a meaningful phrase. And if you push it, you find very rapidly that it doesn't, because it's very, very, very difficult to define, and definitions actually matter. And so if it's a matter of transgressing against the boundaries of gender appropriate behavior, well, first of all, that indicates that there's something universal and normative about gender appropriate behavior, which is something that people who push the idea of toxic masculinity generally tend not to presume. And second, it's just as likely to happen among women as among men, in which case it's not toxic masculinity. So maybe on to the next question.
Okay.
It is actually funny how she can't even define her own words. Toxic masculinity. As highlighted by Dr. Jordan Peterson, words have meaning, and if you can't define the words, then we cannot converse. We cannot exchange ideas because we can't even agree on the meaning of the words. If you pay attention to her behavior as well, she's actually quite rude, asking Jordan Peterson to finish her sentence when she had nothing left to say. That says a lot about her character. In order to converse and to understand each other, you need to be able to define the words. And there's a book that's amazing about this called Speechless by Knowles. The language is not just a tool of communication. It is believed to shape reality. And you can see it in the political correctness. For example, a trans woman has nothing to do with a woman. It would have been much less confusing to call them trans men or men pretending to be women. But because we call them trans women now, everyone is confused. The key takeaway is political correctness is not concerned with any type of logic or coherence. It requires constant changing of the belief and the point of view. For example, if genitals don't define gender, how removing them affirm it? And now we've got a generation that is the most educated but highly lack any form of critical thinking. They are very good at regurgitating what they've been told without having the ability to exercise any judgment. And in theory, school is supposed to teach you how to think, not what to think. But today, especially in the universities, most universities will teach you what to think. And if you deviate from the mainstream narrative, then you will be criticized by everyone. Today, too many people use the word patriarchy or toxic masculinity, even without being able to explain the meaning of the words. I'm going to tell you that masculinity is positive. There's nothing toxic about masculinity. When we need someone to go in the fire to save a child, we do not call them toxic. We call them hero. Because masculinity, used in the right way, has massive benefit for any type of societies.
This message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay. It's necessary. What the hell are we going to do without men? You look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up. These men, they're doing impossible things. They're under the streets, working on the sewers. They're up on the power lines in the storms and the rain. They're keeping this impossible infrastructure functioning. This thing that works in a miraculous manner. They work themselves to death. And often literally, the gratitude for that is sorely lacking, especially among the people who should be most grateful. You see university professors, especially of the social justice bent, who are among the most protected and privileged people that the world has ever produced. They take everything they have for granted, failing to understand entirely that there's a massive infrastructure of unbelievably hardworking, solidly laboring, working class men breaking themselves in half on a regular basis, making sure that everything that always breaks works. And so a little gratitude for that is in order. And it's very useful to tell everyone, not just men, that they have an important role to play, a necessary role, and that if they act properly and honestly and forthrightly, that they can put their lives together and they can help their families and they can make their communities better, and that's not toxic masculinity, that appalling phrase.
Men who have built the world can be amazing role models for the next generation. But for that, we need to let them be men, let them be masculine, and encourage them to be strong leaders. Because at the end of the day, most women want a competent partner. Most women want a partner that is confident, that is a leader, that can lead them to a flourishing future. But for that, as a man, you need to be masculine. You need to be strong. Strong, not as power, but strong in order to protect and to provide for your family. If you don't agree with this take, let me know in the comment section below and define toxic masculinity. If you want to know how to choose your wife wisely, what are the steps to take, what are the steps to avoid, watch this video with an amazing conclusion.